All right, welcome back into the Sports Source. For the best selection of boats between Atlanta and Nashville, you need to head to Madisonville Marine. This you know. It's well worth your drive. But Steve Sloan, Joe Special, and all the folks at Madisonville Marine also carry the full line of Yamaha motors. So new boats, used boats, like the one Bob Hodge bought down there, new motors, used motors, Madisonville Marine. It's your choice for anything marine related. I started to say marinautical. Anything nautical, Madisonville Marine is the group to call. All right. In February of 2013, a year ago, Ole Miss signed a stop me with this sense for me. They signed a top 5 recruiting class. Nobody expected it. The last season, 6 months later, they threw a bunch of these guys out there, so they're starting all over the place. Well, they started out 6-3. They were 6-3 on November 9th last year. They had wins already over future bowl teams Vanderbilt, Texas, and LSU. Then came a win over Troy, followed by losses to Missouri and, surprisingly, to Mississippi State. The Rebels did win their bowl game to finish 8-5, but a lot of folks thought that team hit a wall. Hugh Freeze was asked if his young players hit a wall, the freshman wall, if you will, at SEC Media Days this week. Here's what he had to say. Let's go ahead and put it up there for you. I think fatigue took place, if not physically, definitely mentally. We depended on so many of those young kids. Every road game was 7 or 8 at night. We're getting back at 3, 4 a.m. Somewhere in there, for the freshmen, it's a whole new world for them. I do believe it took somewhat of a toll on them. We certainly need to look at some of those things, and it's on my radar to always be aware of young kids that are having to play an enormous amount of snaps in games. All right, all we've heard from a lot of folks is this Tennessee team is going to be so much better in November when all these kids have some experience under them. We talked about this briefly a couple of weeks ago. I think Hugh Freeze's comments shine a little bit more light on it. Tennessee will play from mid-November on, about when Ole Miss hit the road. They're going to play Kentucky at home, Missouri at home, and then at Vanderbilt. Do Freeze's comments cause any more concern in terms of a freshman wall for you?
I think, yeah. I thought that there would be a little bit of a freshman slide as far as the physical and, like he said, mental part of the game. But listening to that, seeing the results from them, yeah, I think it's a little bit of a greater concern. I still think the players will be better because of the experience, but are you basically at the same spot because of the fatigue factor that he talked about?
The key there was an enormous amount of snaps. And Ole Miss was relying on Treadwell at receiver and Tunisill at guard or tackle, whatever he played. And then Nikom Dichi. Mm-hmm. So they played all these guys. They started them and played them a lot of snaps early. If you're Tennessee and you bring them along slowly, then I don't think it's going to have that fatigue. But if you're starting Dylan Bates from game one, right, by the end of the year, I think he's going to be tired. But if Josh Malone doesn't really play a lot till game 5 or 6 and you bring him along slowly, then I think you're okay. So it depends on how you use that rotation. But I think Tennessee's going to need so many of these guys to play so much right away that I do think there's a really good chance that a lot of them hit a freshman wall.
That's what I was going to ask is if you're Butch Jones, can you afford to go out there? I mean, Utah State's going to give you a game. Mm-hmm. They do every FBS team, every BCS team they play, they've given a game. Arkansas State's a good team. They keep going to bowl games. I don't think you can afford to sit a lot of these freshmen.
Coleman Thomas is going to be out there opening day, looks like at right tackle. Jimmy mentioned a couple of guys, Dylan Bates. Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, we see it in basketball. To me, it's been a lot more obvious in basketball, maybe because you got fewer guys, and
you can specifically see this guy.
The freshman wall is a real thing.
Yeah, and Ole Miss had a lot of injuries too that hurt their depth. That had those kids out there playing more. One thing, if Hugh Freeze is really concerned about this, how many practices and pads are you going to have? How much you going to have during the week? Where if you could cut back a little bit, maybe that would help you, more towards the end of the season.
Well, and he said this was a learning curve for me too. He said that, made it very clear in his session down there with the television media that, this isn't just something that fell out of the sky. He was a little taken aback by it, and he's going to have to prepare differently. So maybe it is the way you practice before the season or during the season, but the bottom line is, I think he's right. Most of the night games you play in the SEC, most of the road games you play in the SEC are going to be at night. You have a lot of home games at night, but road games are probably going to be at night. You're going to be traveling back. These guys aren't used to that.
And Missouri, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, that's 3 games Tennessee's got to win if you're going to go to a bowl game.
Yeah, and I think that the key thing could be the schedule that you just talked about. I mean, it's one thing if you're playing games at noon in Neyland Stadium. That's kind of what kids are used to. But those night games, I really didn't take that too much into account. But if you're kicking off at 9 and you're down at wherever on the road and you're getting back at 4, I mean, I don't know how it is on an 18-year-old kid anymore, but I know for a 53-year-old man, that'd take me 2 weeks.
All right, very good. We're going to talk next about the SEC. The media down there tends to get it wrong a lot. Nick Saban points that out every year. 1,200 media folks, or 1,200 people credentialed as media folks this week, they made their SEC predictions. We'll tell you next if they got it right or wrong. Plenty more to come. Come on back on the Sports Source.